Hi everybody, I'm TychoCelchuuu and this is an overview for Croak, one of the characters in Battlerite. Croak is a pretty good character for people who are new to the game, so if you're just starting out, this is a great guy to learn. We're going to go through all of his abilities and talk about what those are. We're going to go through the special mechanics that Croak has. We're going to look at his Battlerites, talk about some basic tactics for Croak, and then maybe some builds for his Battlerites as we go on. So, Croak, he's a frog dude with a couple of swords, and let's go through his abilities. His first ability is Blade Flurry. Strike with your blades and deal 8 damage. Frog leaps and camouflage. Increase the attack speed for a limited amount of strikes. So this is your basic spammable ability. It's a nice way to build up some energy just by wailing on somebody, and this is how you're going to do a lot of damage, as you'll see as we go on with these skills. There's a lot of ways to buff this blade flurry sort of thing, but pretty basic thing. Right there. Moving on, Toxic Muck. So this is the only way you have to attack at range. Spit Toxic Muck at target location, 6 damage, inflicts toxin, heals you for 6 health, and then the toxin also heals you. So you click and notice it's a pretty large AoE, so it's not too tough to catch people. And it'll do healing both when it hits, it'll heal you for 6, and then over the rest of the time as the toxin ticks down, it'll heal you for 8. Toxin is going to be another important mechanic you'll see as we go forward, and this is one of the easiest ways to inflict toxin. So this is nice to use in various situations, which we'll talk about when we get to tactics. Frog Leap, leap, attack, and strike with your blade to deal 16 damage in front of you, can be recasted. So watch as I cast this, it gives you a little arc in front of you. I think the damage that does is a bit larger than the arc. After a bit of practice, it's not too hard to hit people. And you'll notice right then I jumped twice as I cast the ability. That's because you can recast it. And notice, watch above me the recast bar once I leap. I have some time after that, and then I can recast it. So what you can do is leap, attack a few times, and then leap back. You don't have to immediately recast the frog leap. Camouflage, this one's important. Turn invisible and gain 10% increased movement speed. Blade flurry attacks made from camouflage, inflict stun. Camouflage fades when ability is used. So it's pretty easy. You hit Q, you go invisible, you run around, and you stun somebody. This is sort of bread and butter for Croak. A lot of the ways that you'll start off a fight is camouflaging and then hitting somebody. This will be big when we talk about the tactics later on. Noxious Lunge. Lunge forward, piercing through enemies, dealing 10 damage. Pretty straightforward. Along with Leap, this is your other escape tool. It doesn't take you super far, but it's fast and it's quick and it's easy, and especially if you've already used up your Frog Leap to get somewhere, Noxious Lunge is helpful. Toxin Blades. This is your ability that costs 1 energy. It'll put your Blade Flurry attacks will do bonus damage and inflict toxin, and this will last for 4 seconds. So if we hit R, notice I have 4 seconds worth of toxin blades that I can go around wailing on people with. So this is another great way to get toxin onto people, especially people that you're right next to, obviously. And then once you build your energy up fully, you'll get your ultimate ability, Venom Wind, dash forward in the shape of Venomous Wind, piercing through enemies, inflicting venom, deal 18 damage over 3 seconds, and then explodes, dealing 38 damage. So we go like this, and kaboom, they got some venom, they take some damage, and then they go boom for a lot of damage. If your opponents are good, they can dodge this boom, but if they're not, they can't dodge the boom. So that's a great way to do a lot of damage on a lot of enemies who are lined up. And then let's get some energy back, because if we hold down shift, we can see our 2 EX abilities. Your first EX ability is Sludge Spit. It does more damage, so not any so it does more damage, 10 versus 6, and then still inflicts toxin. It doesn't heal you, but it'll reduce their sight, so blind them. Let's use this here. And notice it's just a little, well, we need more energy now. Let's turn on infinite energy. It goes in a straight line rather than the radius effect that your normal spit does, so remember that when you're using your toxic spit. And then your other EX ability is Deceit, so check this shit out. Turn invisible and gain 15% increased movement speed, so that's 10% more movement speed than before. Blade Flurry attacks made from Deceit, inflict incapacitate, and causes you to enter camouflage. Deceit fades when an ability is used, so watch. We go Deceit, we have red swords, we hit somebody and they're incapacitated, and we're in camouflage again, so we can hit somebody else coming out and stun them. So that is some good stuff that we'll talk about when we get to the tactics. So those are all of Croak's abilities. Now you know exactly what this Froggy man can do in game. So there's a couple special mechanics too to keep in mind with Froggy. So check out the little 4 next to my health bar, and watch what happens when I start hitting people with Blade Flurry. 3, 2, 1, 0, and now my attacks are slower. And they're going to be slower until I wait for a moment, And cling, now my number comes back to 4. So once you get in 4 hits, foomp, 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 your attack speed is going to go down until you give it a bit more time to recharge. So that's important to keep in mind with Croak. And then the other important thing is, remember I told you about Toxin. Toxin is going to interact with a lot of the Battlerites that will come up later. So right now our only ways of getting Toxin onto people are with the Spit or with our R ability, Toxin Blades. But keep that in mind. Oh, and of course the ultimate. Great, so those are some special mechanics. Now let's go through the Battlerites that he's got and take a look at some of them, because they really change up how Croak plays. This one gives you 2 charges for your Toxic Muck. 1 versus 1, 2. Noxious Lunge, or Noxious Reaction, makes Noxious Lunge consume Toxin, dealing the remaining Toxin damage instantly and inflicting the root. Actually, let's talk about tactics as we go through these. So before we get on to the Battlerites, let's first talk about some basic tactics. So with Croak, you're doing 2 main things. You can be, how do I make this go away? There we go. Croak is good at 2 main things. He's good at dealing some damage close in, obviously, and he's also good at incapacitating people with that quick stun. So the damage is pretty straightforward. If you get close to someone and then you come out of camouflage, you can get 4 quick licks, and that's just the basic stuff. If you start it off with a frog leap and then get some hits in, and or finish it with one of these dashes, that's another bit of extra damage. You can power up that whole combo by using your Toxin Blades, and then your attacks will do even more, and you'll get some Toxin in on them. And then, of course, finally, your ultimate is pretty much useful only for its damage, so that's what's up with that. So he's pretty good at dealing some damage. And then the other important thing is that he's a good skirmisher, so not only do you want to go in and slice people up with some damage, but to get close to them, you can either jump from far away, or dash in from far away, or most importantly, cloak from somewhere where they aren't expecting and then come up. And when you cloak, you're going to get the stun, and that'll help you inflict more damage, but it also helps keep people in a place for a moment so they can get hit with one of your allies' important abilities that they need to line up. So the 1.2 seconds that they're going to be stunned is enough for a lot of allies to land some really important stuff on the bad people. It's also a great way to peel enemies off of your healers, so if one of your healer is getting hurt pretty bad, you can leap over, activate the cloak, stun, and that'll give your healer some time to reposition. And then, of course, if they don't deal with you, you can just keep chopping at the opponent that you've stunned. So those are nice things that Croak is good at, and also importantly, Croak can get away. So I've talked about using these things to get in close and do a lot of damage, but often what you're going to want to do is save your Frog Leap, your Noxious Lunge, or even both for escaping from dangerous enemies. So if you get in close with your cloak and then open up with a stun, that's pretty good. You get some good damage in, and then you can hop away, especially over a wall, or if things get scary, you can Noxious Lunge away and then maybe hop away. Croak is really good at keeping himself alive by getting away from enemies who are dealing damage to him. So that's one of the reasons he's good for a new player. You have a lot of escape mechanisms there if things are going bad. And so often I think new players are going to want to get Toxin on people with this thing. This is one of the only ways to heal yourself as Croak, but you can do it from anywhere. So right here we're safe behind this wall, but we can get Toxin in on people and heal them. But don't forget that your R is a great way of getting Toxin on a whole lot of people. So anyone you can hit in melee range for the next 4 seconds is going to get Toxin on them, and they're just going to get all hurt, and they're all going to heal you pretty well. So that's a really nice expenditure of energy. His Sludge Spit is a helpful thing against ranged heroes that you don't want to see you, so you real quick hit them with the Sludge Spit, and then their sight goes way down, and they'll give you time to get out of their line of sight, like over here, and then cloak yourself, and then you can come right back and they'll have no idea that you've returned. So that's a handy getaway tool, or just a way of making less effective some ranged hero that's sort of hanging out on the edge, fiving at one of your allies. You just go wait, split, or spit at them, and then go back right into the fight. But super importantly, I think Deceit is a really effective skill. So this is something you want to use on obviously a target that your allies are not going to focus on. So you go into Deceit, and then you hit the target and they're incapacitated, and then you go wail on somebody else. This is super duper effective if there's like a healer and somebody else, the healer is healing their ally. You go into Deceit, incapacitate the ally, and then stun and start wailing on the healer, or do it the other way around. The important thing is the incapacitate takes somebody out of the fight for a long time, and you don't have to worry about them So that's one of the most effective things that Croak can do in a fight, so keep that in mind. And now we'll start talking about Battlerites and some ways to mix this up even more. So Toxic Muck with another ability charge. This is nice if you think you're going to do a lot of long-range fighting or a lot of fighting from behind a wall or something. So maybe your opponents are the sorts of people who are going to try and stay away from you as much as possible. Maybe you have allies who are already going to be close in, so you want to hold back a bit and only go in when it looks like it's going to be a good time to go in, and you'll spend most of your time just lobbing muck. Or maybe you think you're going to spend a lot of your time running away and you'll be behind walls or something, but you still want a way to do damage and heal up, so that's something. I think if you're new at the game and you're very bad at landing Toxic Muck, having to be like, oh, whoops, I missed, time to do another is a good thing. But aside from that, it's sort of like whatever you like about Toxic Muck, you just get another one of those. So evaluate your playstyle and decide, do I really need another Toxic Muck, or can I use one of these other two? So these other two are really interesting. So Noxious Reaction consumes toxin, dealing the remaining toxin damage instantly and inflicting a 1.2 second root. So there's a lot of important things about this. First, once you get toxin on somebody, then you go in with your dash, it'll immediately consume the toxin. And what that means is not only will it do all the damage immediately, but notice this guy no longer has any toxin on him, so then I can immediately give him more toxin with the toxin blades, and that'll start ticking down and start healing me too. So it's effectively a way to get double toxin in if you've got a way to put double toxin on a person, because otherwise, like with, well, let's kill this thing first so it comes back with full health. Otherwise what happens is if you get toxin, come on, respawn. If you get toxin on a guy and then you attack him again with toxin, it just tops off the toxin. It doesn't give you like extra bonus toxin. So if you want to do the full toxin damage, you think you'll have lots of toxin on people because you're running around with toxin blades, Noxious Reaction is pretty good. The other important thing is it'll give you a 1.2 second root. So this is really great for rooting people that you want to catch. If you can just get some toxin in on somebody running away from you and then dash on in, bam, they're rooted for 1.2 seconds, more than long enough for you to start wailing on them, for you to turn on toxic blades, or especially to go into camouflage and then start wailing on them, and then they're stuck for another 1.2 seconds. So that's a really great way to lock down very evasive heroes who are trying to get away from you. If you're having trouble catching people as Croak, think about using Noxious Reaction. Just remember, you got to get the toxin in on them first before you dash, otherwise nothing special happens. Venom Strike. Blade flurry attacks made from camouflage inflict a venom that explodes after 2 seconds, dealing 10 area damage. Pretty self-explanatory. If you're suspecting that your opponents are going to be clumping up a lot, for whatever reason they're going to be buddy-buddy, this is a nice thing. It also just adds to the damage that you do in your combo where you cloak in and start wailing on somebody. This is going to be something you'll be doing quite a bit in the game, and adding 10 extra damage is no joke. So this is a good sort of standby if you don't think you're going to need to lock people down quite a bit, since you pretty much know for a fact you're going to be camouflaging and then hitting people with your blades. Definitely this Venom Strike is a good choice in round 1. Moving on to round 2, Mending Toxin. The healing effect of Toxin is increased to 16 from 8. That's pretty straightforward. If you're having trouble with healers, maybe your team doesn't have a dedicated healer, or they're busy healing other people, or whatever, you just feel like you need more healing this round, and the further rounds, obviously go with the Mending Toxin. Twin Strikes. Frog Leap causes your next 2 blade flurry attacks to deal 5 additional damage each. So remember, you can cast Frog Leap, get a couple swings in, and then recast it before the recast window is down. So each of those leaps, 5 damage per next 2 attacks, so that's 20 extra damage. If you can land the whole combo, leap, slice, slice, leap, slice, slice, that's some good stuff right there. If you find yourself frog leaping a lot, think about that. This is a dangerous one to pick, remember, because frog leap is a really good escape tool for you, but if you use it to get extra damage on your blades, you'll sort of feel like you need to do some damage with your slices, perhaps. But this is not a bad thing. If you're going ham, like hard as a motherfucker, on the opponent, this can be a nice thing to just like straight up jump in and wreck some people. So if you're feeling super aggressive, if you think that playstyle is going to work for you this match, I would go for some Twin Strikes. And then cut to the chase. Camouflage movement speed bonus increased from 25% or to 25% from 10%. So this is nice if you're having trouble chasing people. It's also really good for escapes. If you pop camouflage and just get sort of far enough away from someone that you get behind one of these shot blockers and sight blockers, that can save your life in a situation where you might have otherwise died. So generally just adds a bit more utility to camouflage. So think about that if you think you'll be in some tricky situations and for whatever reason, Frog Leap and whatever dash, Noxious Lunge, aren't enough to keep you alive, or aren't enough to chase down the people, or you want to save them for getting away, stuff like that, think about Cut to the Chase. Round 3, Jungle Toad. Frog Leap heals you for 14 health, so again, if you're having trouble getting healed, that's a nice sort of thing. You jump on in and get some health. It can be a little tough to land the Frog Leaps when you're first starting out, so this can be a bit risky, and plus the important thing is, like I said, this is your main escape tool too. So the nice thing about this is that it is recast, right? So you can jump in, do some damage, and then immediately jump out. So it's not the end of the world if you want to use these sort of offensively and get some healing in on them too, but just consider the trade-off that you're doing. If you're sinking stuff into your Frog Leap, then that might make you reluctant to use it for running away. But it's still a good thing. 14 healing is nothing to sneeze at, especially if your dedicated healer is not doing a great job or you don't have a dedicated healer, etc. Trickery. Noxious Lunge hits reduce the cooldown of Camouflage by 2 seconds. This is a really nice one because, like I said, your bread and butter here is going into Camouflage, nailing people with stun. And so if you just sort of add one of these onto the end, or you use it when you're escaping but you manage to hit your opponent with it or something, that just gives you more time, or less time that you have to be out of camo, and the more time you're in camo, the more time you're breaking camo, getting the stun, the more time you're getting the stun, the more damage you're doing to your enemies. So that's just an altogether really excellent skill. I go this quite often. And then Frog Frenzy. Toxin Blades increase the attack speed of your next 6 Blade Fury swings. Blade Flurry. God damn it, I'm never going to get that right. Okay, so let's hit R and see what happens. Boom. Shing, 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 doop, 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 doop. Okay, so whatever. I tend not to use this very much just because I feel like, I don't know, it's hard to notice the changing attack speed, but I guess it must be faster, so you're going to be doing more DPS. And so since your bread and butter combo is getting up close and camouflage and just wailing on people, this can be a nice one, especially if you find yourself often attacking unsuspecting people, so you just pop the Toxin Blades and then just like really wail on some people. So this is a nice way to do a huge amount of DPS really fast. So if you want to make Frog Dude a super DPS guy, this is what you would go for. Round 4, we have this pretty obvious, just increase healing by 15% and also 20% damage to 30% below health people. This is the same as all the other characters, namely if you find yourself needing more healing, this is the thing to go for. If you find yourself having trouble finishing off low health characters, this is the thing to go for, pretty obvious. Then Crippling Poison. Toxin reduces the target's movement speed by 12%. You know, I like getting this one because it annoys people. You can inflict a toxin from far away and give them some trouble. Maybe let yourself close the distance, or once you get in close and you hit somebody with the Toxin Blades, they'll have a bit more trouble getting away from you. So again, just decide based on how much trouble you're having catching people in the match, whether you do or don't need to go for the Crippling Poison or the healing or the Slayer or whatever. Round 5. Leeching Venom heals you for 16 when the Venom explodes. Momentum after using Venom Wind, movement speed is increased by 30% for 4 seconds. So let's look at the 30% movement speed. Zoom. Not, oh wait, no, I didn't pick it first. Zoom. See, it's not like crazy, you got haste, whatever, we're moving around. So obviously this is nice for repositioning. 99% of the time I see people picking this is just the easy pick, right? Pretty much you're going to need health by the time you get your ultimate ability, so why not just get some health when this thing pops. But whatever, this is obviously nice for like a clutch play or something. If you hit somebody with it at the very end and they have a tiny bit of health, often after you use this you're going to be way out in bumfuck nowhere because you sort of dash really far and you don't get to choose how far you dash, etc., etc. And so this will help you get right back into the fight or right away from the fight if you end up in a weird place. There's a lot of utility attached to this extra movement speed, but it's not as obvious as the utility that comes from the Leeching Venom. So pretty much it's just a situational thing. What do you feel more comfortable with? Do you suspect that you'll have a lot of other ways to heal yourself up? Do you have this and this already, in which case maybe you don't need this? Or if you have a bunch of things to deal a lot of damage, maybe you do need this, etc., etc. So that's some ways to build Froggy Dude with the Battlerites. There are some clear synergies here. So if you bump up Toxin Muck here and bump up Toxin Muck here, they sort of help each other, and then you can get the toxin buff here. If you bump up camouflage here and camouflage here, then you're like super camouflage, but I don't think there's any need to sort of specialize like this. A lot of these all synergize with each other, so if you go with the Frog Leap heal, then you can not bump up the toxin because you won't need the healing as much, or you can really bump up the toxin because you want to go straight into the healing. The camouflage extra damage synergizes really well with the Twin Strike extra damage because it turns you into a really heavy DPS person, this lockdown is always beneficial, but also being able to consume the toxin and put the extra toxin on right back again is another way to do extra DPS. So there's definitely not like a right way to build Froggy Man, and you have a lot of choices with Croak when it comes into it. And so we've gone through some basic tactics for Croak. We've gone over all his abilities, his little shift abilities, his Battlerites, and you should be in a good position to go and wail on some people with his little swords. Just remember, wait until you see the glint. Cling, and then you can attack again. Or don't wait until you see the glint, I don't know. Probably someone should do the math and figure out how much DPS you lose if you just keep wailing on somebody versus breaking off with a jump and then coming back when your swords have glinted back up. If I had done that, this would be an even better video, but I didn't, so goodbye.